It's an old base, and I gotta make it back home before doing our playtesting. Because we're gonna be working on the Greydwarf situation. You see, in Path of Magic, the undead pretty much rule the Black Forest. And I don't really like that. I want it to be more of a situation like the undead are vying for control of the Black Forest against the Greydwarf, and the player is sort of in between this conflict. At the moment, it's not balanced that way at all. At the moment, basically, the undead rule the Black Forest, and the player interrupts the undead, and the Grey Dwarves are just something you see get ganked by undead, right? So the idea is to make the Grey Dwarves more able to hold their own. But in order to actually see how this works, we need to make our way back to the Black Forest, which means I need to get back to the other base, which is all the way over there. So that's it. That's all I need to do. We're off now. We're off on our grand adventure. Oh, I'm dead already. That was so fast. I've underestimated the firepower of a 2-star goblin shaman, apparently. So I'm not going to bother fighting those things, to be honest. I'm just going to try and make it back to the base here. That was a good start. Died immediately. Alright, let's get our little rested bonus here. And so, right now, we're in an old base from before, essentially. So, what I want to do now is make it back up to the tunnel that leads to the old place. Hey, good morning, Ford. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, very fitting. A fitting beginning to the journey. This whole time, too, I've just been chilling here before starting the stream, and I was totally fine. Nothing threw any firebolts at me. But then, of course, I start running away, and I get AoE burned. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, okay, that's not a safe place. All right, all right, all right. This base is screwed. I'm going out the other way. Go out the front door. Seems smarter. Alright, we got our rested buff. I was gonna make a boat and try and sail out of this place. Chill out! Holy crap, they're so fast. Oh gosh. I was trying to make a boat and sail out of here. Unfortunately though, there's no wood in this base, like literally none. So I'd have to go cut some trees and stuff, and to be honest, I'd rather just get I'd rather go back to the epic mountain and try and find our way. No, I don't know if this is gonna work very well, because I am realizing now that, yes, getting up the mountain is a lot easier, or getting down the mountain is a lot easier than getting up it. Look how big this thing is. It's so huge. It's like a mountain on a mountain range, on a mountain range. Hey, Mr. Wolf. Mr. Wolf. Calm down. Yeah, that's right. I got the strong sword now. What you gonna do? I should be alright. I'll probably be alright. I just gotta make sure I keep this bubble shield up. Thank you. I've never actually gone up the mountain this way, to be honest. I always come down from this side, and I go up the other side. Yeah, so this mountain it's one of the tallest mountains on the server, but it's not actually one of the biggest mountains on the, like, mountain biomes on the server, if that makes any sense. This is the, let's call it Halder's Mountain. It's where the original Halder spawned. Hey, he was giving me bubbles. You mean, oh, you're a 2-star Drake. Okay, okay, okay. Calm down. Calm down, Mr. Drake. Alright, and I removed the explosive damage that was occurring here. It no longer occurs, but we need to, come on, Mr. Whoop. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, I'm gonna die, 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 I'm gonna die. This wolf, is he gonna kill me in one hit? I think he is. Something's gonna kill me. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Oh, he's gonna get me. Oh, he didn't get me. I don't know what's up with this Drake, but I'm gonna hide a little bit here. Calm down, Mr. Drake. Calm down. Alright, alright, alright. The wolves didn't get me that time. I got lucky. Yeah, there we go. So this still explodes, but it doesn't destroy all the rocks, as you saw earlier. I definitely... What was that howling? I heard some howling. I don't like the sound of that howling. Dang, these 2-star drakes don't mess around, huh? Jeez. You're brutal. That drake dropped black metal? Wow, that's the first time I have ever seen that drop. I guess I'm gonna take it. Why not? Screw it. I guess I don't need to get I don't need to kill Motor for that black metal now. That's pretty cool. Alright, so I still need to get up there. I think that's actually... We're looking for like a Morgan cave built into the side of the mountain. So I think it's up there somewhere. Ah, yes. Ford asks, does the fire arrow still do self-damage? And yes, it does. The way that the effects are categorized in Valheim is basically effects damage vegetation or characters. And you can toggle it for each one. But at the end of the day, the effects still... characters are considered monsters and players. So there is no separating the effect. You can't make it damage a player, but not a monster. Well, you can with RPC calls. So you basically make an extra damage that makes it look like it takes damage when it doesn't. But yeah. So now you can still kill yourself with the fire arrows, and you can blow everyone else up, but you won't destroy the entire mountain's rocks in the process. If that makes any sense. Alright, that looks pretty promising. We're definitely getting closer. I vaguely remember this area, because I remember falling down from the portal, and there being a Draugr. I think he actually came from here. Yay, some frost arrows. I'm going to leave that for some lucky adventurer. Yeah, it's funny playing the way that I do, because... I don't really care as much about progression. I just care about like testing things and trying them out and exploring and streaming it. So it's made an interesting situation where like I play Valheim in a way I've never really played before. Because normally I'm like, I don't like rush to progress, but I care more about progression. Whereas in this playthrough, I don't give a shit about killing any bosses, like, or anything. It's great. I can just do what I feel interested in. Alright. There it is. Hey, there's the cave. Alright, that's where we're trying to go. Oh, wait, no, that's not where we're trying to go. That's just close to where we're going. That's it. Huh. Let's see. Ford says, that mod plugin works in the same way that pickaxe damage is, where it's a strange stat that doesn't usually affect monsters. I don't fully understand all the damage types, but as far as I understand, pickaxe, it's not that it can't damage monsters, it's that it does a certain kind of damage that monsters tend to have resistance to. But it can actually damage certain monsters, like if you use a pickaxe on a stone golem, for example, it'll damage the stone golem. So if I remember right, it has like its own stat that makes it vulnerable to the pickaxe. And that same stat determines, like, can your bronze axe cut this tree? Can your iron axe cut this tree? Etc., etc. Can your black metal axe? It has something to do with that. I'm not really sure, though, to be honest. So in Valheim, there's a couple different ways to do damage to players. And then there's different ways to do damage to NPCs, or not NPCs, but objects, parts of the game that are not players. And the main way to do something to a player is through an RPC call, where you just say like, okay, player takes this damage. And so you can make that happen whenever you want by adding it to something that already happens, if that makes sense. But then in addition to the RPC calls, there's the actual effects that cause damage, like the lava blob explosion that you see from the fire arrows. That causes actual damage, and because of that, hey, there's the well. Because of that, it will do damage to things, and anything that already has a damaging component in EWP, you can like toggle if it damages vegetation and if it damages characters and monsters. But you can't like half turn it off, if that makes sense. Ford says, I think most enemies are considered immune, so the pickaxe and woodcutting skills use the same system as other leveling stats, while not amplifying damage on top of something like your axe skill. Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? I can't return. Yeah, this is the problem that happens. That's really funny. I guess this is why we have playtesting, right? Yeah, so you see what's happening basically is that the game's trying to teleport the character, but for some reason the terrain hasn't loaded properly. And you actually could see that for a second when the character comes back. Yeah, you see how for just a moment I actually stand up here? That's because when Valheim first loads an area, it loads the original values for the terrain. So when I try and teleport to an area that isn't loaded, if that teleportation spot is underground, like this well, for example, then basically it blocks the teleport. And I have to move the teleport up so that it's above ground. But then that means that when you teleport, you fall a little bit, right? So in this case, I need to fix the file. I need to fix the coordinate so that it actually goes to a little bit higher on the y-axis. So I'll do that real quick. It's nothing interesting, otherwise I would show it. But it's probably more interesting to watch an AFK character on the screen, to be honest. Just me clicking on some files here. Alright, so we're in the server, we're in the BepNX config, expand world, and what I'm looking for are diverger tunnels. Is that what I called them? No, diverger passageways. I tend to name things different than I actually refer to them later. Funny. Alright, and we're looking for what? Mountain 3? Yeah, Mountain 3, huh? Okay, Mountain entrance 3, Mountain exit 3. There we go. Nice. Here we are. I'm just gonna increase this by 5 meters. Save it. Alright, so now I gotta wait because I just refreshed the file. So we're gonna see a little disconnection icon in the top left. And then I'll either get kicked off the server or I'll be able to, or it'll just go away. I might actually get kicked because this was a 30 kilobit file. And I tend to get kicked, or players get kicked if I update something that's like more than 20 or 30 kilobits. But it sort of depends. I used to be able to get away with 50 kilobit updates and nothing would happen. But nowadays, if I do anything more than like 20, this happens. Which is interesting too, to be honest, because 20 kilobits is like nothing. We're talking about like very, very, very insignificant amounts of data. So I don't fully understand why it kicks all the players when that happens. Because like I actually got tripped up about it because I'm used to seeing this in file exchange, right? It says the file size, but it's in bytes. Not megabytes, not kilobytes, bytes. So when I say 30,000 bytes, like, that may sound like a lot, but it's nothing. 30,000 bytes is like, it's like a snap of the fingers, pretty much. It's nothing in terms of modern internet. So let's see, did we fix it? Yeah, there we go. See how we teleport here first, and the terrain's all there, but nothing else has showed up? That's basically what happens. So if the teleport if the coordinates were under the terrain, then the game's like, oh no, you can't teleport the player under the terrain, even though we automatically put the player on top of the terrain. I have no idea why it does that, to be honest. Absolutely no idea. It must be some kind of, like, holdover from dungeons, I assume. Yeah, Ford, so it isn't refreshing all the files. It could be, though. Like, it could be something to do with all the files. But basically, let's see. Am I relatively safe? Yeah, I'll show you. 1 second. Alright, how do I do this? I guess I can't do that without showing the IP. Here, I know what I'll do. I'll show a copy. 1 second. File Explorer. There we go. We're gonna move this down here. Minimize it. Desktop. Files. Palm. There we go. Awesome. Alright, so I'll show you why it's unlikely that it is refreshing all the files, let's say. So here is my desktop screen. This is a backup from Palm that is 13 days old, so it's already out of date. But basically, these are all of the Palm files, all of the scripts. So we can see that this actually shows the size in kilobit, right? So they're really tiny. Like, see this? Even the biggest file, the regrowth file, is only 208 kilobits. So this isn't even 1 megabit, right? But this is by far the hugest. It's like, it definitely kicks all the players off. But it doesn't refresh everything, and I know that because if I refresh this script, everybody gets kicked off. Whereas if I refresh, like, one of these scripts, everyone's fine. So for the most part, let's see, the kickoff point is, like, somewhere around here. So all of these things, I can work on them live, and there's no problem for players while I'm doing it. But then if we go up, all of these things, they're big enough files, like the Diverger trades, heavy armor stuff, the foreman, conveyor. These systems are all pretty big. And in general, I split systems up if I can, but certain times, like the regrowth system, for example, if we open this file and look at it, it's just like loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of the same thing, pretty much. And I could split it up into like 10 different parts, but there's not really any reason to do that because I don't need to edit it. And this is just an entry of every single thing that can be destroyed that regrows per each biome as well. So it's a long, long list. But anyway, let's get back into the game here. An empowered, tough pack leader. Wow, how did you get up here, mister? Chasing bunnies? Alright. I'm gonna let you do your thing. You look pretty rough, honestly. I mean, that 2-star shaman from earlier showed me enough of a time. Someday I'll move to the plains and start doing some, like making a plains castle and raiding goblin camps. Honestly, I love the plains. It's maybe my favorite biome in Valheim. Maybe. But I already love it so much that, yeah, I can just chill here. Hey, I should fix this when I get a chance. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that guy has killed many people. He chills there. He's from the, not Colosseum. What's it called? The Stonehenge? That's where he's originally from. But alright, let's be smart here. I'm gonna actually set a spawn instead of being a crazy fool. I guess I could get rested, though. Tians has put the habit of closing doors deep in my soul. I used to be like, I'm going in the building. I don't need to close the door. I'll come out. But now I'm like, oh, gotta close the door every time. Funny. Alright. Cool. Well, we've almost made it back now at this point. I probably should have brought, like, some ancient wood or something useful, but, whatever. No, what I'm always running on, there's a crystal battle axe here. Nice, someone got a good drop. That's cool. Well, I got my 5 black metal from the actual game. So now I want to use that. Let's see, what there. I know that there's normally things that are gated. No, you still need the artisan table, don't you? Yeah, that's right. So it's not just gated by black metal. It's also gated by having to have dragon tiers, right? Like, for example, let's say I want to build a blast furnace. I can't because I have never looted any dragon tiers. So even though I got this black metal, I guess all it really does is allow me to make the higher level crafting cooking stations. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, okay. I was looking at the menus a bit too much there. Yeah, that's funny because when I added that drop, I was thinking about it from the perspective of, oh, hey, the motor is normally a choke spot for building things, but I didn't think about the fact that it's not just the black metal, it's also motor's tiers. Wow, that's so shiny. What is it that's so shiny over there? Is that crystal, like, in the moonlight or something? What? That's crazy. And then there's a tomb. Oh, dang, there's a tomb right there. I didn't know Shin had... There's 2 tombs here. These tombs are probably too close to each other, to be honest. I bet they clip. Huh. Ah, so is that... I see. Ford says, yeah, you can't make a blast forge without... Or blast furnace without an artisan table. But you can make the weaponry, like Skull and Haiti. Hey... How much does Skull and Haiti cost now that I think about it? That'd be a fun weapon to use on the server. In general, I like the thing about empowering. Don't get me wrong, there are technically like best in slot empowered items and all that kind of stuff. But what I like about the empowering system is it makes weaker items more useful. So like this bronze sword, for example, like I would never give a crap about a bronze sword, whereas now I can confidently go into the mountain and fight like normal wolves, no problem, with bronze stuff. That's cool. And it means so like you can focus more on what you like visually and also like aesthetically, like the style of fighting with the weapon. You know what I mean? Because I always really liked the Skull and Haiti, and I also always really liked the Fenring Claws. Those are two items I really enjoyed. But they don't necessarily scale that well, right? Whereas now I can use the claws, and I can empower them. And the claws have this crazy kick that will stun even a 2-star goblin. So while Fenring Claws might not seem like they're something very powerful, they actually are incredibly powerful because you can get stuns and staggers on enemies that are notoriously difficult in most other situations. Let's see. Ford says, I use Skull and Haiti and it's really fun. The main issue is that you need to hot swap between your buckler. Yeah. Yeah, that's... So I'm wondering about what an empowered Skull and Haiti is like. Because the empowered weapons, sometimes their block values go up, right? Like with this Bone Tower shield, it has a block force of 200, which is just... It's like, it's absolutely absurd how far. That's like if you noticed earlier when I blocked, the wolf got like thrown back like 10 meters, right? That's all from the block force. So it'll be interesting seeing. Yeah, I definitely, at some point in this live stream, I'll do like a plains series where I make like a plains castle or something. That'll be cool. I gotta say though, I love having like a main path to run down. I think it adds a lot to No Map, No Portal. And there's something about like, I don't know, something in video games for me personally that I really like. Hey, a bunch of Greydwarves. Interesting. As I remember earlier, I was saying that I buffed the Greydwarves, right? I tried to make it so it's less of an undead party and more. Oh god, I'm gonna die from this. And less of an undead party and more of Greydwarves fighting in the Black Forest. So that's a good sign. I mean, I didn't even make it to a Greydwarf spawner, but I already almost got in trouble with some Greydwarves there. That's definitely a good sign. Because that's basically what I want to playtest next, is the Greydwarf patch. Because I just patched the Greydwarfs. So let me collect my thoughts and make sure I explained everything else I was doing. Yeah, I was saying that I want to do a plains part of this playthrough at some point. We'll make like a plains castle and then raid goblins and fight them and use those resources to try and build stuff. I'll basically do the same kind of playtesting I've been doing, except instead of burial chambers, it'll be actual goblin camps. So that'll be cool. Yeah, here we go. This is part of the Greydwarf patch. So now that I got that tangent about the plains out of the way, that was bouncing around in my skull, now I can explain how I patched the Greydwarves. So basically, Palm, in my experience so far on this character, the undead absolutely rule the Black Forest. And I don't really want that. Like, I like how powerful the undead are, but I like monsters fighting monsters. I like more of this kind of faction combat. And that way the player can help manage the difficulty a bit simply by, uh-oh. Is he gonna kill me? Yeah. 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 Oh, he killed me. I missed the block. But basically, the player, the idea is that the Black Forest is really challenging, right? Like, yeah, I'm aware I just died. I gotta run back. Whatever. I like running down the path, to be honest. It's easy to talk running down it. But the Black Forest as is full of undead that just gank the player, basically. They gang up on the player, right? And I don't really want that. You know, what I want instead is to make it so that the player feels more like they are in between combat, if that makes sense. So I realized that the undead have been ruling everything, and the Greydwarves, like, they just get ganked by the undead pretty much, right? So the idea is to make the Greydwarves much more powerful. But I can't actually just, like, increase the strength of the Greydwarf attack or something like that. So basically what I did is I made it so that Greydwarves have similar spawning mechanics to monsters inside dungeons. Basically, whenever one normal Greydwarf spawns, it adds a chance for an extra Greydwarf monster to spawn. And the Greydwarfs are all allied with the troll and the boar. So that's their faction, essentially. And there are, like, even though there's no obvious, like, it's not like a faction tag in the game, there are factions in Valheim. Obviously, you can tell because, like, certain monsters fight each other, whereas other monsters don't fight each other. I haven't looked too much into that. I don't know if I can edit it. That'd be interesting. So Ford says, on most weapons, I think the block force scales the distance they're launched, but not the block armor. Ah, interesting. I think the block armor must also scale, but maybe not as far. Maybe it doesn't scale as much as the block force. Oh, I think I see what you mean. When you're saying scale, you mean scale exponentially versus scale linearly, right? What on earth is this? That's really funny. Yeah, and that makes sense. So basically you're saying that certain weapons, the block force will scale up a lot higher than the block armor. So even if, like, let's say it starts at level 2 and it has a lower block force, it can still, the block force will actually pass the block armor, if that makes sense. I think that's what you're saying. Just correct me if I'm wrong, though. This place is real. I wonder whose bases are these? That's a really cool looking place. And then also this place here. Very interesting. Huh. Ah, okay, so you're talking about specifically Skull and Haiti. Gotcha. No, if you did it and you remember it being that way, I doubt it's changed. I haven't actually empowered Skull and Haiti at all. Ah, alright, so it's the fact that this is Bone Tower shield that makes its block armor scale. Interesting. And now I'm wondering about, like, what about the other weapons, like Crom, for example? Does that get a nice block armor scaling bonus? There's so many nice little views, to be honest. I like this walk. It's a nice walk. It's so funny, too, because just having a path, honestly, it makes such a difference when you die. Because, like, if it wasn't for the path and I had to navigate all the way back to where I was, I would have been frustrated dying. But because, like, this path is, like, genuinely fun to go down, and it's, like, relaxing, and I can just talk about stuff and look at the views, I don't care that I died, like, really. I could just go down here. And I really, like, I don't know. The experience with the path has made me want, in my own game, I want the world to generate a path automatically. So that, like, the players are funneled in different directions, if that makes sense. So, like, in a perfect world for me, Valheim, like, would basically automatically pick an eligible area for a main path to develop. And then, like, as you progress, that path would... It would maybe, like, already be in the world or some way. I think I'd do something like that. Because, like, this server actually started with players building paths. And me having the idea that it's fun for the player to build paths. And I'm going to be building paths. And I've learned that it's not. It's not. That's the simple answer. It's more enjoyable when infrastructure, but not buildings, are already created for the player. And I've learned this through a lot of testing with people, that, like, when you expect players to build the bridges, build the paths, some people like to do that. But basically, they're going to do it at such a small scale that it won't really work for everybody who plays in the long run, in the scale that I want to make things, right? So that's why you end up with big paths like this, because I found that doing it this way works better. Instead of trying to make the game about making a path, you make the game about using the path. Make sense? Hey, welcome, Ben. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, you are welcome to join. Anybody is free to join Path of Magic. It is not a private server. It's not, I mean, technically it's public. You can find the information. In order to join, you do need to follow a series of steps, which may be a little confusing at first, but pretty much you're going to go into the Discord channel called the Poolside, which is a community Discord between me and Captain Crumbs and Splash of Pain. It's actually their Discord. They gave me a spot in it. So you join that Discord, and then you need to enable the JP Valheim section in the channels, and then you go to Getting Started, and that'll give you the IP and everything that you need to join the server. And the Getting Started section, I may as well show you, actually. It looks like this. And I'll show you because anybody else may also be interested. Good morning, Yannick, by the way, or good afternoon, wherever you are. I am here. And here we are. We got the pool side now getting started. Okay. So pretty much it's like this. And I'll show the IP just because, I mean, why not? You're already watching a live stream. Sorry about that. I showed like all of the wrong scenes for a second there. So basically you'll join the poolside Discord and then you'll enable the Path of Magic section here, right? Because there's a lot of stuff here. It's not just my Discord, it's other people's as well. So you need to go into the Path of Magic section and then the Getting Started area. And in the Getting Started channel, you'll get the IP and also you'll get some information about what to expect when you first join. Because Path of Magic is different than normal Valheim progression. So you don't kill bosses. Like when you join, you're used to joining and then going to try and kill Eikthyr, but in Path of Magic you don't do that. I mean, you can try and do that, but you're just gonna die, basically. Alright, Mr. Lone Hunter. I got you this time. I think 200 health is I can survive a 1-star wolf hit, right? Yeah, okay. Aha! Sucker. Alright. Now, I got so much nonsense. I don't know how I got this silver ore, like what this dropped from. I also have all of this nonsense. What a cluttered inventory. I actually want the wolf's meat. Thank you. Alright, we got this. We got some bread somehow. Okay, oh yeah, because I was in the plains. That's right. Get rid of this stuff. Don't need this stuff. Alright, I guess that's good enough for me. Get some coins, some scale. Now, I guess I don't need the... Oh, no, I'm good. Hey! Calm down, Mr. Skeleton. You want to go? Yeah, you can give me a bubble shield. Here's some advice for Path of Magic. You need to learn about the bubble shield system. Because when you block in Palm, you get a magic bubble. And that makes it a lot easier to stay alive. There's a lot of things in Palm that are about trying to make melee more viable, basically. So monsters heal you when you kill them in combat. There's buffs. As you can see, I'm running faster. That's actually because I'm using a tower shield and I blocked. And I also have a lot more carry weight. That's from wearing a heavy armor set. So there's a whole bunch of changes on Path of Magic. So Ford says, I tried to kill Eikthyr with mountains plus gear and I died. Yeah, Eek is tough. It's definitely like, yeah. So the mentality with bosses on Path of Magic is that I believe that killing bosses in Valheim. Well, okay, yeah. I guess I force people to deal with my mentality, and my mentality is that Valheim. The worst part of Valheim is the boss progression. Not because of the bosses, not because of the boss fights. I think they're actually pretty cool. Like, the bosses themselves are interesting. They have cool graphics, interesting attacks for the most part. They have pathfinding issues, but that's not why I'm bothered by the bosses. I'm bothered by the bosses because it's such a temporary way to experience the game. Like, okay, you go to Biome 1, you kill that boss, you're done forever. You've conquered the meadows. Now you're going to Black Forest. You kill the Elder, you're done forever. You've conquered the Black Forest. Nah. I don't want to give the players that satisfaction so quickly. I don't think that the players should feel that they have conquered the Black Forest until way later on in the game, when they're really, really powerful, right? So that's the idea, is like to use the enemies, to use the, how do I put it? To use the boss fights as a way to keep the feeling that not everything was done. And I have my theory, basically, is that by doing that, you make the immersion in Valheim last longer. Because it's the progression of the boss fights is the origin of the temporary nature of a Valheim server. So I believe that by adjusting the boss fight experience a lot, you can make a big difference in the Valheim server experience and make it last a lot longer. Oh, Oh, I made the block. Okay, cool. I thought I missed that block for some reason. Oh, I missed that one. Come on, shoot me with an arrow, someone. Someone shoot me with an arrow. Please. Ah. Alright, this Droger can hit me. It's so funny. You have to time it, right? Because if I had gotten hit by this 1-star Droger, he would have killed me. Right? But if you get hit by weaker enemies, then you survive. So it's all about, like, baiting the hit from the weaker enemy so that you can take the hit from the starred enemy, right? And so this is what I mean by the undead. You can see that the undead, they just totally own anything that has a crypt near it, right? There's going to be loads of undead, and they spawn outside the entrance. So there's always like a little army of undead outside the entrance of the crypt. And the idea here is to gate the crypt a little bit. So you have to get the... You have to, like, clear the threat in the beginning to then be able to enter the crypt, right? That's the idea. And that, honestly, is working pretty well. The thing, though, that needs a lot of improvement is the Greydwarves. So, now that I've cleared out that threat, I'm going to just load this up real quick. Yeah, I found that the conveyor works really well to unload these things once they've spat out a bunch of ore and stuff. But to actually load them, it's often easier just to, like, load them up yourself. Just because otherwise you have to take a long time actually getting everything to line up properly, if that makes sense. Even with all that, we still didn't get our silver ore there. That's okay, though. Hello, Mr. Greydwarf Root. Thank ya. Alright, so I guess I'll just toss my ore down here. May as well toss this metal too. It's all gonna end up in the same place. Hopefully. Greydwarves! That's one of the patches. Basically, the patch that I changed the spawn rates of Greydwarves, so there's more of them. And also I made it so that the Greydwarves that are normal Greydwarves spawn as starred Greydwarves. And then also made it so that the Greydwarf spawners themselves work kind of the same way that the undead spawners work inside dungeons. So we'll see how that goes in a minute. I'm just going to put all this away. There we go. We're just going to act like I need all these things. Good enough. There we go. We got our food. Rested. Alright. Good enough for me. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go explore and look for a Greydwarf spawner. And then we're going to see how that goes. Let's see. Ford says, a fun side effect is that you can effectively use light armor and have the same experience, because either way you'll be one shot if you miss a block. Yeah. that's exactly why I have to add all of these other benefits to using the heavy armor to make it more practically useful. That's the idea here. Hey, we have a pair of migrating Loxen. No matter how low I set the chance for that mechanic, it always seems to happen too frequently. Locks are so powerful. It's quite interesting, actually, because they're typically not thought of as like a main enemy because they can be tamed. But as far as monsters go, a 2-star Lox is one of the, like, most powerful monsters in the game. Like, especially considering where they're from. I'm not saying they're scaled against, like, Ashland's mobs or something, but they could certainly hold their own better than you would expect. Hey, what's up with all these 2-star skeletons? What's up with this? There must be... Is there a crypt here? What's up with this little place? Got a little skeleton party here. Oh, it's hilarious. Oh. Oh, hey, I killed... That was an empowered skeleton, huh? I see. Where are all these guys coming from? There's so many of them. But only skeletons, not anything else. Very interesting. If it's, I'm assuming it's not... It's probably just like one of those little tomb things, because if it's an actual burial chamber, it would have Draugr and wraiths and other enemies, but this is like only skeletons coming to fight me. So I'm assuming there's like a little, one of those little dolmens, I think they're called. I don't know though. Where do those skeletons come from? Huh. I have no clue. Hey, path's over there. Well, that's another thing about the path. It makes it so much easier to not get, like, hopelessly lost on no map mode. Because it's pretty easy to get lost. And I read a really interesting comment about getting lost in Valheim. And it was a request, actually. A request that... Hey, this is a Greydwarf spawner. It's gone, though. What if I make it so we can respawn Greydwarf spawners? Seems like a good idea. I don't know where the spawner went, though. That's kind of interesting. I thought the spawners force respawned. So did someone already come to this area since... No, that doesn't make sense. Maybe it was the undead. I don't know. This is pretty close to an active area, so it's like active area Valheim is completely different to unactive or single player Valheim. If you haven't gotten used to active area Valheim, it's like when you normally play Valheim, the world only happens when you're there to experience it. But in a fairly active, and when I say active, I'm not saying like 10 players on all the time. I mean like 1 or 2 people on every single day, okay? That's all it takes. As long as an area is active and there's people playing in it, then it gets way more chaotic. There's a big chance that when you leave and come back, something will be destroyed, right? Whereas in single player, that basically doesn't happen because the game doesn't occur when you're not there. But when you play on a server that has other people on it, the game is occurring when you're not there. And this makes some huge differences to gameplay. Like, for example, in single player, you can take a boat, park it somewhere, and log out. And when you log back in, that boat is going to be totally fine. And you're going to be exactly where you logged out. Whereas in multiplayer, you can log out with the boat, and then come back later, and your boat is just destroyed. Because there were a bunch of necks in the water nearby, and it was an active area. So it got destroyed. That's basically how it works. Chill out, Mr. Brute. Hey, Ashwood. Nice. Alright, I'm not trying to fight these. I'm honestly looking for one of those spawners, but it's making me think. I did find that one spawner, so maybe I just adjust it and make it so that the player can respawn a Greydwarf nest for like 99 coins. Because to respawn a dungeon is 999 coins. And that makes more sense to me. You know, it's like an entire dungeon. Whereas a Greydwarf nest, I don't know. A Greydwarf nest is like a smaller thing, right? So I think that's what I'm going to do. Just got to find that nest. Okay. The undead around the crypts are so next level sometimes. Maybe this is where that horde of skeletons came from. Certainly could be. Certainly could be. Alright, now where... Ah, some random campfire. Maybe that's what was stopping the respawn of the Greydwarf nest. I don't remember, actually. I think... Ah, yeah, I know. I have Greydwarf nests set to soft respawn. I think that's what it is. I should make them hard respawn, to be honest. They add a lot without... They help repopulate the Black Forest with enemies, so... It looks like I have them set to be on the soft respawn. So I'm trying to remember... Ah, yeah, that one base Indo built has a Greydwarf spawner in the middle of it, so I would need to remove that. Yeah. Okay, okay. Well, bear with me for a moment here. I'm going to adjust the respawn mechanism so that players can pay 99 coins to respawn a Greydwarf spawner. So, let's see. We're going to go to BEP, config, expand world. Now, I'm looking for the player dungeon reset mechanism, which allows players to pay normally 999 coins, but I'm going to change it just for this spawner. Player reset dungeons. There we go. And I'm going to make it so that this particular location, the Greydwarf Nest, can be reset with a treasure stack, not even a treasure pile. All right? So give me a moment here. Treasure stack. And then instead of Crypt 2, it's going to be, what is it called? Greydwarf Nest 1, I think it's called. One second. Locations, list, Greydwarf Nest, spawner, Greydwarf Nest. That's what it's called. Wait, that's the location's name? No, that's just, it's just, that's not right. It's telling me the name of the game object for the Greydwarf Nest. Greydwarf. Yeah, okay, so it's listing off all the game objects because I don't have the proper locations thing enabled right now. That makes sense. I'll just look it up. Alright, so the location is the Greydwarf Nest. The ID for the thing itself is spawner Greydwarf Nest, but that's not the location. I need to look at the Jotun list for locations. I swear, it's like Greydwarf Nest 1 or something. What's it called? Greydwarf Camp 1. That's what it's called. Alright, thank you. So pretty much, I'll show real quick what is going on here. Basically, I've looked up a list of the names, right? And this is the name of the location we're looking at. It's Greydwarf Camp 1. So here we have the script that allows players to reset certain dungeons. Crypt 3, Crypt 2, etc., etc. So here we're making the same thing, except instead of for crypts, it's for Greydwarf camps. And it will work like this. And pays a stack of coins to reset a Greydwarf nest. And let's see, does that, boom, boom, boom. Treasure stack, Greydwarf camp, commands, Greydwarf camp. All right, looks good. We're gonna save this. And then we're going back here. And we're also saving. All right, so now I should get a disconnection icon, but then I won't actually disconnect because it was only an 11 KB file. And then in theory, I'll be able to build one single coin stack to make this Greydwarf nest respawn. But also, for the Black Forest's sake, I'm gonna add Greydwarf nests to force respawning. Add Greydwarf nests to force respawns. And so force respawns are an interesting subject, actually, because sometimes people don't really understand, like, why? Because there's this notion that, like, oh, players might build there, and then you're gonna respawn the thing by force and then mess up their building. And, like, I get how that logically sounds like it's gonna happen all the time. But the reality is, that players don't actually build over things that often. And if they know that they respawn, they just build next to it. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, really, it's not that big of a deal. It's not worth having the dungeons not respawn just on the chance that a player might want to build in one of them. Because whenever a player wants to build in a dungeon, they can just ask you, and you can spawn them an unrespawning dungeon. You see what I'm saying? It's easy. You can just do that. And then you'll do it in the one case where they want it, exactly where they want it. And if they find a nice spot, you can do that for them. That way you can keep the force respawning. Because if you don't use force respawning, basically what's going to happen is players are going to go around and they're going to do this. They're going to put one single campfire. And this one campfire blocks the respawning for everything within around 300 meters. 3 zones or so. Oh, I should also add the swamp grave spawners. That's a good idea. That's the same notion, actually. Add swamp spawners to force respawns. Yeah, pretty much we have... That's what happened. I'm sorry about that. At some point, I must have pressed a hotkey that switched to that screen. That was weird. I didn't mean to do that. I don't know how long you didn't hear me speaking. But basically, what I was trying to say is that if you don't use force respawns on your server, then players are going to place a campfire, place a workbench. They're going to explore around. And each time they do that, it's going to disable the respawning for like 300 meters-ish from that one object that they place. And it's basically going to make everywhere that the players have been in unrespawning. That's why, like, I don't really recommend to use soft respawns because they often don't end up working as the players want them to. And, like, really what you need are force respawning dungeons on a server that started that way from the very beginning, so players know what to expect. It's all about managing the player expectations. If you fail to manage the player's expectations, then there's going to be problems, right? And most issues don't actually come from the problem itself. They come from what the player thought and the difference between what the player thought and what ended up happening. Make sense? So here we are. We have our 100 coins. That's good enough to make a stack, or a pile rather. And what I'm trying to do is see how the Greydwarf spawners go. Because from the changes I made, it should be more intense, pretty much. Mr. Migrating Loxon. I should make them spawn on, like, low health or something. Because even a 1-star Lox is, like, really powerful for the Black Forest. Not sure, though. We'll see. Oh, I didn't get rested. How did I get the improved archery bonus? What the hell? Oh, did Odin bless me? Ah, yes. Odin reminds Labrad of the power of archery. I see. Okay, cool. So, that's another thing in Palm. When Odin shows up, he'll either curse you or bless you. So instead of Odin just, like, showing up and he's just a creepy guy watching you, then actual things can happen. basically. So you can get any buff in the game, pretty much. He can curse you, shroud you, etc. Pan says, this dungeon didn't respawn. Let's explore 300-meter radius circle around to find the player build pieces. Yeah, exactly. That's the woe of soft resets. And like soft resets, they're kind of nice for certain things. But for the most part, I would say it doesn't really matter. That was so fast. I love that mechanism. Player spawning stuff is so cool. But now let's see, will it actually make Greydwarves, or are there like... No, it's working. Alright. Okay, so far, this is pretty vanilla. We'll see though. Supposedly it escalates, so each time it makes a Greydwarf, it has a chance, basically, to spawn more Greydwarves on a delay. So in theory, as we use this, it'll get more complicated. But I guess we'll have to see. So far, this is very, very normal. It's actually, now that I think... Oh, okay, there we go. We got one extra one that time. But now that I think of... Oh, yeah, okay. I wanted to do a test. Because I wasn't sure, actually, if abominations are aggressive with Greydwarves or not. And, like, logically, I would assume that they are. Because the Greydwarves... Oof, this guy's... I'm not paying attention. He's going to kill me. The Greydwarves... Wait, what just happened? He just... Oh, it's because I'm wearing bronze armor. Ah, alright. The abominations flee at the sight of Labrat's bronze armor. That's funny. But so now there's another one, and it's 2-star. What the hell? Okay, that's too much. So you see how now, yeah, the Greydwarf spawner is showing its ridiculousness now, right? You see all these different enemies. You see, the thing I was trying to figure out, I was trying to make the abomination like a super rare Greydwarf situation. But it looks like the abomination is, yeah, he's allied, he's an undead. I was hoping that the abomination was classified as a, like, he was loyal to Greydwarves as well for some reason, because he's a tree stump. But he's not. Definitely not. He's showing that shaman what's what. And let me guess, you destroyed the Greydwarf spawner? Yes, you did. Alright. I paid for that. You better refund me. Well, I definitely, I'm gonna take the abomination out of this. It's too much. Yeah, you better flee at the sight of my bronze armor. That's right. Freaking coward. And a bore. Oh, that's funny. Alright, well, I'm glad now. Now I got some good play testing here. So I can see already a couple things. One, yeah, abomination needs to be taken out. Or maybe made incredibly rare. I don't know, to be honest. It's probably going to cause more problems than it helps. And then, now the spawner itself, it should come back. Because it has the same rules as the other spawners. So you can destroy the spawner once, but then there's a 50% chance that it'll come back at a random time after you destroy the spawner. So that's also what's making these enemies show up. It's actually that they're spawning because something is like a visual, sorry, not a visual effect. That they spawned originally, and then a timer went off to spawn another one. And so it makes like this lingering effect around an area. And here, all right. I'm trying to think though, what could really make the Greydwarf nests more interesting? Obviously respawning, the coin thing, I did that. That's pretty simple. I guess if they could somehow drop fine wood sometimes. Yeah, like maybe if a Greydwarf dies near a Greydwarf nest and the player is not right next to it, then the wood gets converted into fine wood sometimes. The wood that the Greydwarves drop. Oh, yeah, here you go. See, you see how they just show up? So that's another thing to work on is instead of just having the monster just pop up like, whoa, okay, yeah, mister. Instead of having the monster just show up like that, basically, I should make it so there's some kind of visual effects that sort of hides that a little bit. For now, we're gonna fight this troll. I got my improved archery. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do, huh? Yeah, I got poison arrows. You're screwed, Mr. Troll. Yeah, now you can see just how strong these poison arrows are. They're like absurdly powerful. So the normal poison arrows the poison ends after, I don't know, like 10 seconds or something. Whereas these poison arrows, they are buffed. So not only are they AoE poison, but they last a really long time. So you can see that kept going. And it does like, I think it's like 400 poison damage per arrow, something like that. It's a lot of damage. Poison arrows work, I think they're one of the better things, aside from frost arrows, to use against trolls. They work really, the 2-star abomination. All right, mister. Well, we're gonna take advantage of that, and you're gonna fight those trolls. Definitely there's no need for a 2-star abomination. This place is already dangerous enough. All right, mister. Why don't you give me a bubble? Thank you, thank you. All right, yeah, that abomination made quick work of them. It's okay though. Yeah, right. That's always the balance, Pan. Pan says thinking about 2 stars on abomination. They're quite hard. On the other hand, one can run away because not every mob needs to be dispatched. And yeah, absolutely. In this case, though, I think there's definitely there's no reason for this to be as common as it is. I was really hoping that the Greydwarves were loyal to the abomination. Just because he's a tree stump. And then it could give me like a really strong Greydwarf monster to work with. But no luck. That's okay. I think, how do I activate the bronze armor set? I think I have to block with it. Is that right? Is he fleeing now? Because the fleeing also makes the boss or the monster disappear. Looks like he's not fleeing. No, now he's fleeing. Okay, cool. All right, well that seems pretty solid actually. I'd say, let's see. So I add Greydwarf nests to force respawns, add swamp spawners, add some kind of VFX, to a monster spawning. And then the Greydwarf nest. Yeah, I guess as long as it is force respawn, right? Oh, I got enough coins, I can just do this again. That's funny. As long as they're part of the force respawn system, it's probably going to be fine. Probably. That being said, I will need to fix that one base that was built around one of these. I think that was Indo's tower. But luckily, when someone has already built something, you can actually go to the location, blueprint stuff just in case, and then you remove the location and spawn a manual one. And then when you force respawn, nothing will happen. So it's not like it's impossible for players to have things in their bases and stuff. It's just that you have to do some preparation for them. I think that that works better. Because it also helps the player feel more of a sense of world building, you know? Like, pretty much the more the player feels involved with, like, placement of things, they can get more immersed. It feels like they did something to influence the world, you know? And that can be quite beneficial for the long-term enjoyment of the player. I guess it depends, though. Some people just, yeah, they don't care about that kind of stuff. And that's what's tricky about a server, right? Is I see he triggered the extra stuff. That's kind of amusing. Yeah, should I disable those near the... I don't know, though, to be honest. It's kind of amusing when there's, like, a small chance for, like, other kinds of monsters to show up. I don't know. Like, these guys, they're very unused. But them showing up this much, it's not ideal. Definitely not ideal. Dang, did a lot of damage to that abomination. I can actually fight this thing? Huh. Maybe a 1-star or a normal abomination isn't so bad. Because honestly, the Greydwarf spawners... yeah, they're like kind of boring. But it definitely, to be honest, I don't think the value groups work properly because the abomination is 1 out of like 40 values. So why do they keep spawning so frequently? Like that doesn't make sense. Unless did I change that? I'll have to look at the value group. Yeah, so the abomination's disappearing because of the fearing aspect of the armor I'm wearing. That's probably another thing that could be improved. Yeah, because basically if the enemies don't disappear, then you have to unfear them. Otherwise, they just run away forever. Which is interesting. This is also a very interesting way to farm stuff. Because I'm getting like the drops, right, from the ragdolls. Interesting. Yeah, so far, let's see. Now's a good chance to look at the value group because I think I may have stumbled upon an error in EWP or maybe a glitch. Because it definitely doesn't make sense that the abominations are showing up as much as they are. And I'll show you why. It's actually quite easy to understand why it doesn't make sense. I just need to show you the one part of the thing, so I'm pulling it up. All right, expand data, and then we're looking for values, value lists. Values, here we go. Now we need our Draugr roller. Yeah, alright, here you go. So this is why this doesn't make sense, alright? I'm gonna show you the desktop. And so now we're just gonna go in here. And there we go. You see this, right? Let's change this to something prettier. I like makefile. There we go. Okay, so basically, each time the spawn happens, it looks at this list, and then it picks one of these things. Right? So the abomination should be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. It should be like 1 in 20 spawns or less. Yet it's occurring very frequently. Like we should be seeing more Greydwarf Shaman and Greydwarf Elites and other things. Yet for some reason that's not happening, and we're seeing this abomination a lot. Which is kind of weird. So I'll just keep playtesting this. And I'll see, because it should be closer to 1 in 20. Not as little as it has been. It just doesn't really make sense, to be honest. Let's build another one here. We reset our pile there. And now we're just gonna keep seeing how it reacts, basically. I'm gonna count the extra mobs that spawn. So that was a normal spawn, and you can tell when they're normal, basically because they have the VFX. Ah, no, that's not how it works, Pan. So value groups, you make weights by adding more of the entry. I actually don't use value groups a whole lot. Most people use them all the time. But I usually use weights more directly. But I'll show you in a moment. 1 second. Just gonna go hide away from this spawner real quick. I think if I just like hide over in the edge, then it'll accumulate a bunch of stuff. We'll see though. Yeah, if I just like hide over here. Hey, calm down, Greydwarves. I know I'm slaughtering your spawn area, but don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. I'm trying to get them to stop fighting me, but by the time I kill one, I aggro the others, right? Alright, there we go. That should be good. Okay, so now I can show you what I'm talking about, Pam. So basically, the way these lists work is it's like this. It's called a value group. You call this thing the Greydwarf roller, and then when you call it, it will pick one of the possible values out of the list. So you asked about weights, and that's how you... So normally you could just add a weight to something else, but in the value group, you handle weights differently. You change the weight by increasing the number of times each thing shows up. So basically, it's like this. Let's see. Let's organize this a bit better. Yeah, there we go. So if I organize this from rarest to most common, it would look like this. There we go. So basically, you call this, and then there is a 1 in this chance of it being an abomination, a 2 in this chance of it being a boar, a 2 in this chance of it being a greyling, 3 of it being a shaman, 5 of it being an elite, and then 7 of it being a normal Greydwarf. So chances are it's going to spawn a Greydwarf, or it could do one of these, etc., etc. And let's see, Pan asks, can you use value group or weights interchangeably? Sort of. So this is data, and weight is a prefab thing, okay? So this is the data that I can refer to, called the Greydwarf roller, right? So actually, if I pull up the right thing here, give me a moment. For some reason, I have 3 occurrences of file exchange open, and that's just not necessary, so let's fix that. Okay, all of these are good, so now I'll show you an example of the prefabs. So let's see, we have Verger passageways, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for... yeah, I could just show... Why don't I show the Greydwarf Spicer itself? That's probably the most relevant thing, because it's what I'm playtesting. So we're going to open that up. Just give me a moment here. Have to log back in. All right, here we are. We're looking for the Greydwarf Spicer prefab. There it is. Nice. I'm just going to put it in the pretty thing here so it's all colorful. Greydwarf Spicer. Here we go. All right, so now I can show you. Go to our desktop. So here we have a prefab file. And so most EWP things have two files. They have the data file, which is like what has these things in it, right? These value groups and other things. There's values, value groups, and then datas. This only has values and value groups, but these are actually not the most common. The most common is just a data. So basically, you can refer to this, and then it's going to pick one of these. That's why it's called a Greydwarf roller, because it rolls to pick one of these, right? So weights are in the prefab file. So what I could do, let's say I want to go to the part that we're looking at right now, which is this. When a Greydwarf is created at the Greydwarf camp within 20 meters, 70% of the time, when there is not 15 monsters within 30 meters. Okay, there's a lot of qualifications there, but this is the weight thing. This is what you're asking about. And weight is sort of like percentage, but it's not guaranteed because it's weighted against the other occurrences. So this looks like 70%, and it is. But let's say I add another occurrence of Greydwarf that also has 70% weight. It no longer is 70% weight. They're going to be 50-50. If that makes sense. So like the weight is a little confusing in that way. The moment you start using more than one, or they don't add up to be 100, they don't mean exactly what they say, if that makes sense. So on one hand, you can use a weight, right? So in this case, roughly 70% of the time, one Greydwarf is spawned. It will pick 2 Greydwarf from the Greydwarf roller, and then it will spawn them at a balanced level, which is another roller, basically, that picks something. And then... oh, wait, the data actually... Is that even working? Because it shouldn't work now that I think about it. Because balanced level... Ah, no, okay, I handle it this way. I see. Okay, that makes sense. So basically... it's going to pick a Greydwarf from that list. It's going to pick a level from this list. And the reason it's called balanced is because you could just do 1, 2, or 3. But then you equally get a level 0 monster, a level 1 monster, or a 2-star monster. And that's not really ideal. You want it to be rarer to get a 3-star or a 2-star. And then average rarity to be 2. But most of the monsters are 1. So that's why this is called a balanced level roller. Because half the time, roughly, it's a normal monster. And the other half, it's stronger with less frequent, the strongest variant of it. But so that's what all these do. And that's to answer your question with weights. Weights are used in the prefab file. And you can use them... it's not so much that you can use them interchangeably. It's that weights are a separate thing, basically. So we have the actual value groups, right? That's data that you can use. It's not... You can't use a weight inside of a data script. I don't know if that answers your question better, but that's the guts of it, pretty much. Let's see. Let's put our shield away real quick here. There we go. Get our carry weight back. Now let's see. What's happening with this spawner? How's it doing? Bunch of stuff there. Yeah, so it looks like it doesn't like accumulate too much crazy nonsense. But there are... Alright, there's a bunch of shamans. That's not normal. So that's part of the Spicer working, right? Looks like they got kind of distracted over here fighting something. I guess it could have just been RNG though. Maybe the value groups do work, to be honest, because like one thing I've noticed with players and designers is we seriously underestimate RNG. We think it is a lot more reliable than it actually is. Like even if you have a 50% coin chance, it is completely possible that you flip a coin and 10 times in a row, it's heads or tails. Does that mean it's likely? No. Does that mean that your coin isn't a 50-50 chance if that happens and you witness it once? No. But you're gonna feel like your coin's broken if you witness that. And the human mind itself does not comprehend random number generation. Like, really, it doesn't. We are so predisposed to looking for patterns that we're unsettled by something seeming like it has a pattern. We will take it as if it has a pattern, even when logically we know that that is just RNG. And like, I know that's something I've noticed, because people they'll look at occurrences on the server and like tell me it's not RNG, and I'm like, I get it. I get that the output isn't perfect. It's not a perfect 50-50 split, but that's just RNG. Like, in order to get, you can test it yourself. Like, run a chart in like Google Sheets or in Excel or something like that, and make it just really simple. Make it just 50-50, it does one thing or it picks another value. And then just keep re-rolling that, and look how far you have to go before you get a perfect 50-50 split. You might have to go into the hundreds or 200s in order to see that, and it still might not happen because it's RNG. Like, yeah, it's unlikely that you're gonna get 100 things in a row. Very unlikely, but it is technically possible. Yet, whenever that happens, the abominations spawned in the beginning, right? That was a couple abominations in a row, and I was like, oh, this is busted. Probably not. Probably it was just the RNG. Like, literally, because, like, you know, now I feel like, oh, okay, I've just been fighting Greydwarves. I haven't seen any abominations. Oh, now it feels like it's working, right? But that's RNG. That's how it is. And it's tricky, because if you don't balance the RNG properly, then it'll be too boring. But on the other hand, if you imbalance the RNG, then it seems very extreme. And a lot of game design seems to be about that. It's about like how much you can handle without underbalancing and overbalancing it, which can be really complicated, to be honest. Like, it definitely can get quite tricky. The abomination just ends the spawner in one go. That's pretty funny. So the first thing I'm thinking is the abomination being non-starred is probably alright, as long as it's infrequent. But having the abomination follow the same spawning rules as the Greydwarves, allowing it to be 2-starred, I don't think that's really a good idea. I mean, there are ways to handle it, right? Like, there's trolls off in the distance, so we can aggro a troll. You know, aggro these guys. Then have them fight each other. But a 2-star abomination, I mean, 2-star enemies are really powerful, so pretty sure this 2-star abomination is just gonna gank everybody here. Hey, Mr. Lone Hunter, calm down. Why don't you join in this fight, huh? No, you don't have to kill me. Why don't you just fight them? Not me. No, not me. Calm down. Oh, yeah, I know what I can do. Here we go. If I just keep blocking him, maybe he'll go over there. Yeah, there we go. That's hilarious. Yeah, that 2-star abomination is doing some work, huh? Interesting. Look at all these Greydwarves. Well, I will say that making the Greydwarves more common, that part has definitely succeeded. Although having more monsters is problematic. It's not just good times. It makes more lag. So like in general, if you could have 10 more monsters and it's just as fun as having 5, you should have 5 more monsters. But oftentimes more monsters is more fun. It really depends. I don't have any fire arrows, only you. I bet poison doesn't even hurt this guy. Yeah, of course not. Freaking undead. Honestly, poison? It makes sense that poison doesn't harm undead. But in vanilla Valheim, poison is like very weak because of how many undead Valheim has in it. Like the swamps, poison, pretty much useless. The plains though, oof, that's useful, you know? The huge knockback? So Pan asks, how do I feel about the huge knockback from the tower shield? And to be honest, is this gonna kill me? Nah. Probably would have killed me if it hit me. I guess I can see actually. Let's see if he kills me. Yep. So basically, Pan's asking about the knockback because when you start empowering certain shields, their block force can get really high. So it makes the knockback of the monsters go kind of extreme. They get like thrown back against the wall. And personally, at first it threw me off. It seemed a bit like gimmicky or weird. But now that I'm more used to it, it helps break up the big groups of enemies. So when the player gets surrounded, as long as they're not in a hallway, they can direct enemies to like get knocked back. And they can use that to orient the enemies. And as you saw earlier, like I just used that on the wolf to get the wolf to be closer to an enemy AI than me, so that the wolf will then attack the other thing, right? So there's ways that you can use the knockback effect in combat, but you have to anticipate it, right? And I could see how, like, if you want to keep everything grouped up so that you can use AoE or something, maybe it's not as ideal. But honestly, I've been having a blast doing melee in the burial chambers. I like how I can get surrounded and, like, still survive as long as I time my blocks well and I watch for the starred monsters. Like, for me, that's been really enjoyable. It's been a fun experience. So I've liked the tower shield, to be honest. Also, the whole movement speed thing, like, it's honestly just great. Oh yeah, I have to actually block with it. That's right. And that's been cool. I really like both of those changes, actually. The giving the the carry weight to the heavy armor. And in addition to that, also the speed buff. So like when I block with the shield, right? One block. And then in addition to my bubble, I'll also get the movement speed buff. And this is cool because the tower shield reduces your movement speed by 20%, right? So if I just put the tower shield away, I now have 35% more movement speed because of the tower shield buff. So it's very noticeable and it feels very snippy, even though I'm wearing bronze armor. So I think this is the key, this sort of relationship between the tower shields and the heavy armor, where using both of them becomes very incentivized. I think that's sort of the key, because the armor value itself is negated by the functioning of the armor system in Valheim. Because there's different difficulties, it's just not balanced. The armor isn't, like, the armor value alone cannot be balanced for multiple difficulties, unless difficulties change armor values. Make sense? Because otherwise, yeah, that's just how it is, basically. It's because they have a difficulty system and the armor values don't change, that means that there, by definition, is a sweet spot of balance based on armor and difficulty. And there's gonna be times where armor is too easy and too powerful in easier modes, and then in harder modes, it's almost completely useless. That's just how it is when you're doing numbers that are set, static numbers, when you can adjust difficulty. It's not going to be balanced in all difficulties because it would have to be adjustable in order to be balanced in all difficulties. Make sense? But there is no adjustment. So I'm pretty sure that the key to making heavy armor feel good is not changing the armor values, because that system just doesn't really work. It either, like, let's say it does work, right? And you get a bunch of armor. Then what? You can walk around and nothing can hurt you? That has consequences in itself. So I don't think that that's a good way to make heavy armor more useful. And that's why I'm really leaning on these utilitarian, practical reasons to make heavy armor genuinely useful. Even if it doesn't make sense. Like, why does it make sense? Well, it doesn't make sense that you wearing heavy armor gives you more carry strength. Like, that doesn't make sense at all. I mean, I guess you could say that because you can wear the heavy armor, you're stronger, right? But in that case, like, you would be the same strength if you took the armor off, right? You would be stronger because you don't have as much weight. So I get it. Logically, that doesn't make sense. But when you actually play with it, it feels good. I can feel that I want to wear bronze armor to get that extra 250 pounds when I'm moving material around, right? So it means that there's an actual use for the heavy armor sets. And I think that that is the direction to go in. That's my gut. That it's not about making the armor sets more useful in combat. Counterintuitively, it's about making the armor sets more useful out of combat. That's the key to make heavy armor feel more valid. Increase its practical use. And I'm pretty sure we've figured that out, to be honest. The thing that is still up in the air, pretty much, is the actual, how do I put it? The individual set bonuses. Because that's something Pan actually mentioned. I think it was Pan. He was saying how, like, when, like, with the bronze armor, for example, you saw that it can fear abominations, it fears trolls, and it fears wraiths. But, like, okay, that's useful in the Black Forest and the swamp. But what about after that? It does nothing. So it's almost like each armor set needs some kind of interaction with the, how do I put it? Yeah, each armor set needs an interaction with at least one monster from each biome. But like that sounds hard to do. Like, I mean, I've just added some armor set bonuses, right? But even then, like, coming up with, that means like 6 different effects for each armor set to make it useful, you know? So it's hard to, like, wrap the head around how that might go. Totally possible. But a little complicated in its actual practice, let's say. Alright, mister. I'm like comically amused just how different the 2-star abomination's health is compared to the 1-star. Like, the 1-star abomination, I just, like, took out with a bronze sword and bubble blocking, right? It was really fast. Whereas this guy's got so much health. Like, look at that. I'm shooting him, and it, like, doesn't even matter. Like, I'm doing a little bit of damage, but not really that much. Yeah, okay, the fire arrows feel so much better now. They feel more balanced. Like, they're strong, but you can still, like, you don't just destroy the whole world by using them. It's actually funny how whoa, what? Ah, okay, the regrowth. All right, I was like, where'd those trees come from? The regrowth occurs 10 minutes after something gets destroyed. It's kind of ironic using tree stumps to fight a tree stump. Is he burning enough? Yeah, there we go. We got him. All right. Cool. Now look at this. So this is an interesting way to accumulate resources. I mean, I got a bunch of resources now. Like, more than I can loot. I guess I should bring a cart. I'm not against that, to be honest. Like, fighting Greydwarves, I think of it as a reasonably interesting thing. It's just kind of boring for people, right? So, like, maybe the Greydwarf spawner... Yeah, maybe I can make it so most of the time, maybe like 3/4 of the time, the monsters are all Greydwarf related. But then, maybe one of the ways to make things more interesting is specifically to make these spawners, like, you could just keep fighting at them the way you've seen me fighting. I'm gonna come back here with a cart, pretty much. Because the idea, like, one of the things I want to tackle in Path of Magic, here, I'll get in the sunlight here and explain it. So, basically, Valheim has this thing where most players play in the beginning parts of the game, right? And in general, the idea of developers and server managers is often trying to push the players out into the rest of the game. How to get the players to go to the mountain, how to go to the ashlands, go to the plains, go to the mistlands. But instead, I want to make it possible for a player to play in the Black Forest and the meadows and never go anywhere else, but still be able to access building materials from other biomes. So I want it to work in a way where the Black Forest player can do Black Forest things and get crystal, stone, grouston, black marble, just with effort. Make sense? And there's more challenges available. So the burial chambers themselves already function this way, but they're so undead heavy, right? I can already tell that there needs to be a feeling of conflict between the undead and the Greydwarf. Not a feeling of all the undead versus the player. So, working on the Greydwarves this way, I think will help as well, because then there'll also be these natural interactions where there's a Greydwarf spawner kind of close to a crypt or something like that, right? And as long as the player is nearby, then over time, it'll start to take over. And the player will be able to interact in those places, right? At least that's the general idea that I'm going for. So I guess, what do I do right now? I guess I could why don't I kill some troll? Because if I get 200 coins, then I can just summon a cart instead of having to go back. And there's all these resources over here. Seems kind of ideal, right? Let's see how he handles this. Oh, I missed. I don't have to worry so much about missing now, because the explosion isn't just gonna, like, ruin all of the trees in the background, you know what I'm saying? You wanna go? Uh-oh, he's gonna get me! Oh, that was so close. Woo, wow. Alright. Now, did you drop enough coins? Yeah, you did. Thank you, Mr. Troll. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You wanna go, Greydwarves? I got fire. What do you have? Nothing. Nothing. Damn, these brutes are strong. Sorry, just the way things die sometimes is so comical. Ow. Alright, cool. So now we have 267 coins. So I can throw down 200 coins. And then I can summon... I don't know if it's going to work, actually, because there's so many... Ah, it worked! Sometimes there being a lot of other items around messes things up. But in this case, everything was fine. So now we're just going to load up our cart here with all of the nonsense we've looted in this area. And so I'm kind of liking... Yeah, I'm liking this concept of the Greydwarf spawner. The player can go to a Greydwarf spawner, fight it, farm it for stuff, but they can't just make a Greydwarf spawner because the thing actually force respawns. So like they can fight things and get stuff that way. I think that's probably more balanced. I mean, we'll see though, we'll see. But I have a feeling that that's gonna work. Because like when players make spawners, yeah, it's like, my attitude with spawners is I want people to be able to have fun doing the things that they like to do, for the most part. So I acknowledge that a lot of players love to build boar farms and Greydwarf farms and all these kind of things. So I don't want to take that away from them. But at the same time, there's a lot of problems that happen from these players' behavior, if that makes sense. And it's ironic because they often have good intentions. Like people want to make a boar farm so other players can get leather. But they end up making lagfest for other players far more often than other players get leather. And then even the leather thing. Okay, what? Another player can just get infinite leather? Now what? You know what I'm saying? Like, all it means is they get to the end sooner. And like, then what? You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to justify from my perspective. That's why, like, in general, like, giving players more items, you have to be really careful with giving other players items. In general, I don't think it's really a good idea. I guess it's a little bit different with food, but especially when it comes to progression items and these things. It's a very touchy thing. It's very easy to, like, screw over another player without realizing it, because they don't have as much self-control as they want. So maybe they want to take their time with progression, but if you throw them like a long-term progression item, you just completely influence and alter their experience and their playthrough. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's worth it, if that makes sense, like at the end of the day. But it really depends on the players, you know? Some people like it. They appreciate it. Like, one of the other players dropped a really strong sword from the Ashlands just in the Black Forest randomly, right? And, like, I know that Palm does that, but Palm does that in a planned way, if that makes sense. I don't just give people Ashlands gear, because then that invalidates Ashlands gear. So, like, giving gear has to be done very tastefully, and you have to give people gear that you think they're not gonna use, that you want them to use, if that makes sense. It's very tricky to effectively balance rewards. I would say that's the hardest thing of managing a server, is figuring out how to properly reward players, because in general, you can think, oh, I can give them a cool sword. Yeah, maybe that cool sword is motivating, but the problem is, you give them that cool sword, that invalidates the cool swords they can build. That invalidates the other ways that base Valheim gives you cool swords. So every single reward that you give players has consequences, and it will invalidate other similar rewards of that type if you're not careful. That's why in general, I don't reward like strong weapons, because if I give a player a strong weapon, then they now do not get that good feeling of crafting their own strong weapon. You know what I mean? So like, I'll give the players strong weapons in situations like with the battle axes, for example. Battle axes drop because people don't use... oh, I forgot about the migrating Loxodon. Oh no! My point though, leave me alone. My point was that battle axes drop because people don't use battle axes. They find them to be very weak and they tend to ignore them. So I make battle axes drop because I know that players are gonna ignore them anyway. So at least if there's a chance for them to be dropped, then maybe, maybe it'll encourage the player to try the battle axe out, and then they'll realize, oh, On Path of Magic, the battle axe is different. It heals me. It's stronger, right? But in general, it's not really good to reward weapons to the player. Like, for example, let's say you rewarded the Dirnween sword, right? Now you have invalidated the mechanism to get Dirnween in the first place. You know? So it's hard to... It's definitely tricky to balance, like, absolutely. And I'd say that that's probably a mistake server owners tend to make. I went into this assuming that all server owners think like game developers. But that's not true. You would think that server owners would think like game developers because we're basically doing game dev, right? But in reality, a lot of server owners do things, they're just like, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? And then they do it. But they don't really think about the game development consequences of adding like some really powerful thing to their game world. No, I'm not saying everyone's like that, because not everyone is. Some people do think about the consequences, and they're really good at like keeping everything balanced in that sense. But in general, I've observed that like when people make servers, they do tend to, you know, and I'm definitely guilty of this as well. I'm not saying I'm not, but we tend to focus more on what we care about more than what other players want. And that works if you're in alignment with players to a point, right? But a lot of server owners end up, how do I say? They alienate their players because they change things too much. And that's another thing that's like something to keep in mind if you're managing players. It's much better if all of the changes start that way in the very beginning. With Palm, it's like a little bit different because players are used to the fact that like things get changed a lot. And you know, a player could say something and then it becomes a feature, or I could have an idea and then it becomes a feature, etc., etc. So people are more used to that in Path of Magic, right? Whereas if you just start, like, let's say you have a Valheim server and you just start doing EWP things in it, you start changing things like that, you're gonna alienate your players. Like, you really have to keep in mind that like when you change mechanics on people, it's confusing and it's alienating for them, even if the mechanics are really cool. So if you do ever do something where you're making a different version of Valheim, like Palm, it's a different version of Valheim, it's really important that people understand that from the very beginning going in, because otherwise you're gonna have issues. And not because like what you did is bad, it's what I was talking about earlier. It's all about expectation management. And if the players are expecting normal Valheim, they're not really gonna like this different version that you have because they want normal Valheim. So it's all about like understanding and attracting people to what you're actually doing instead of like some idea of it, if that makes sense. And that can be tricky for people. I'd say that's probably one of the harder parts for people, is like getting active server is tricky. It's very easy. If you make a vanilla server, you can keep it active for the first 2 weeks pretty easily. But anything after that, like, it's challenging. It's genuinely challenging to keep a server active unless you have reasons that make it like an experience people can't get elsewhere, and you have a YouTube channel, etc., etc. That makes it much, much more manageable. But aside from that, I don't even know. Like, to be honest, I don't think Palm could have players if it wasn't for me making YouTube content. Like, Valheim itself, you can't just make a server and then people find it and it becomes popular. Like, at least, I don't know, I tried that for a while. Like, before I got into all the stuff I do now, there were a couple different things I did, and one of them was running a server. And I just ran, like, I just hosted a server, didn't do anything to it, and I just hosted it and put it public, made it listed. And the idea was just to see, like, okay, what happens? It's pretty simple. And people join and leave, basically. Maybe somebody joins for like a couple hours that day. But that's it. People don't like... really stay in Valheim servers. And one of the main reasons for that is that Valheim, like, doesn't have an effective way to show people servers. Like, in some ways, it's very effective, don't get me wrong. But for the most part, it's just not. So like, for example, if you make a new server, your options are to make it public, and then it'll show up in the server list. Or you can list your server in the Discord, right? And then, like, that's it. That's what you can do. The game itself is not gonna organically find players for your server. You have to have some kind of social media presence. You have to have some kind of YouTube channel. Otherwise, you're just not gonna find that many players in general. Like, it's a little bit different if, like, the game's really popular at the moment, right? Like, in the Valheim heyday, right? Like, it was pretty easy to find Valheim players because there were millions of them, right? Whereas now, people don't care about Valheim. Like, I mean, I know you guys listening to, and I love Valheim, don't get me wrong, I think it's an amazing game. And you guys listening, or guys and girls, those of you playing who listen, you like Valheim. But, like, at the same time, we are absolutely in the minority. And if you want to see something real crazy, well, I'll show you some data. Just give me a moment. But I was looking at the Valheim data on Google to see, like, how Valcon compared to Valheim expansions. And, like, all right, here's some perspective for you. Let me actually show this. So just to give you some context, how do I explain this? Let's see. Yeah, give me a moment. Let me set it up and then I'll show you. All right, Valheim, and we're gonna do the past. Let's see, 12 months? No, I'd say, let's see. Yeah, let's actually do the past 3 months. There we go, 90 days, that looks solid. Alright, so I'm going to show you this real quick. So just to give you a sense of how niche Valheim is, here we go. We are on Google Trends here, and this is showing the general search interest on the internets for Valheim. It's not like Valheim players, and I prefer to use this as a metric for interest in the Valheim universe, because if somebody is writing on a forum and they're writing about Valheim, or they're posting on Reddit about Valheim or whatever, it's gonna get caught here. Whereas if you just look at Steam analytics, you only get to see how many people are purchasing the game and how many active players there are. And I personally don't find that to be as good of a reference point as the overall interest in the term. Because Valheim is a very unique name, so you don't have to worry about it bleeding in to another common phrase people are searching for. Whereas if it was something like, you know, a game like, even something relatively simple, like, let's say, okay, like Left 4 Dead, right? It's like Left 4 Dead, right? That makes it unique. But imagine it was Left 4 Dead. Like, this, you can search for it, and even if you put in video game, it's gonna get a little confused sometimes because people use this phrase normally, right? It shows up. Whereas Valheim is just Valheim. So it's reliably accurate as far as I've been able to tell. So here we can see the spike activity, right? This is totally normal. Spike activity is weekends to weekdays, and it has to do with the fact that Valheim has a mature player base who works day jobs. So they very clearly play more in the night, and that's what each one of these spikes are. It's like daytime, night, daytime, night. Basically, when it's low, people are working, and then they get off work. And then they're working, they get off work. They're working, they get off work. So this whole area, without even looking at the dates, I can tell you this is December. this is Christmas break, because there is no, the spike activity gets all messed up, right? Whereas if I look at the past, let's go with the past 12 months, for example, there's no more spike activity. But that's just because you're looking so far out that you don't see it anymore. Whereas if you go to 30 days or something, you see some clearly defined spiking as well, right? And in this case, sorry, I was misspeaking earlier. I was speaking about days, but the spiking you're actually seeing are weekends. Basically, every Saturday and Sunday is the peak for people playing Valheim, as far as I know. Let's see, February 2nd was the Valcon event. So what I'm trying to show you is that Valcon itself actually attracted more attention than the Bogwitch update did. Which is quite interesting, right? So let's see, Bogwitch is... How should I do this? I guess custom. Then we're gonna go from... I think it was in October 29th that Bogwitch came out. So we're gonna do it like this. Yeah, here we are. So basically, this is the... Okay. Just so you know, Google Trends shows in percentiles. So it's always... The number you see here, 100, means that out of the data I'm looking at, 100, this is the highest point of interest. Okay? So on February 2nd, for Valcon, there were more people interested in Valheim for that day than there has been before. And if you look over here, we can actually see that this is the release of Bogwitch. So this spike is the first weekend after Bogwitch comes out, I assume. Let's see, November 3rd. What day was that? November 3rd. February, we're going to go back to November of the previous month. November 3rd was a Sunday. Yeah. So typically, content comes out, and then the following weekend, the closest weekend to that content, will experience a spike. But as you can see, compared to the interest in Valcon, the Bogwitch was not really that noticeable, which is quite interesting because from my perspective, at least, the Bogwitch is actually one of the best Valheim updates there's ever been. It added so many awesome, genuinely useful quality of life features. It added more usability to the swamp. It added more coin sinks into the game, and Valheim is in desperate need of better coin sinks. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that the Bogwitch update added. Yet, it didn't really bring more players. So like that's the thing. It's important to understand about Valheim. It is an amazing game. I love it. The reality is, though, most of the world doesn't give a shit. And like, I don't know if that's gonna change. I want it to. I would love for it to change. You know, me personally, I spend so much time on Valheim content, and I can only do that because I'm okay living a life where I live off of like $1,000 a month. And even that being said, I can only keep doing this until pretty much the end of this year. And if I don't earn a couple $100 more from YouTube, I gotta stop. Like, that's just the reality of it for me. I gotta do something else so that I can earn money. Because I can't just keep putting so much time into things when I can't, like, pay bills and these things, right? so like, inevitably that's gonna happen. And if Valheim doesn't get more interest before that happens, I'm gonna have to like get a job and I simply won't have the time to manage the server in the way that I have been. So I hope that it doesn't come to that, but at the same time, I'm not expecting anything. Like I've just come to understand I care about different things than most people do. And you all listening, it's probably the same. That's why you like Valheim. Valheim isn't for everybody. I'm assuming. I don't know why, but it doesn't seem to be. And maybe if you have any insight into that, you could let me know. One of the other things I'll show on Google Trends actually to end this is the demographics of Valheim. This is something that has really confused me for a while. If we look at it here, okay. So instead of looking at the search interest here, what we're gonna do is make Valheim worldwide, and we're gonna look at the search interest in the previous year. Okay? So this will show us where in the world people are playing Valheim. And you can see that by far, most of the search interest is Finland, Sweden, Russia, Latvia, Poland, these areas. It's very much in Viking regions. Whereas if you go to like the US, it's only got a search volume of 32. And then if you look here, let's, nope, don't want to do that. I want to keep going here. Let's see, where is the United States on the list by search interest? It is number 17. One of the larger gamings in the world doesn't give a shit about this game. And what's so weird to me is how relevant to Vikings it is. And like, now I hear you. You're like, what do you mean, Jack? That's super obvious. It's a game about Vikings. Of course people in Viking lands play it. Like, I get it, but that logic doesn't work in almost all other video games. Do people where pirates were only play pirate games? Do people where ninjas were only play ninja games? Was Ninja Gaiden only popular in China or Japan or something? Like, no. These games spread outside of their cultural origin. So, like, I don't understand why that hasn't happened with Valheim. Why is Valheim mostly played by white Scandinavians? Why are there so few Asians, so few Chinese people, so few African people? I don't know why I acted like Asians and Chinese are different. You know what I mean? Overlook that. I'm just saying, there's a bunch of these demographics that are almost non-existent in the Valheim player base. And for me, I don't understand why, because that doesn't apply to other game types, you know? Like, World of Warcraft is played in loads of different places, right? There's not a huge cultural thing there, but it's loosely based off of, like, medieval fantasy games. So are medieval fantasy games only played in Europe? No, they're not. So, like, why is Valheim so exclusively focused on in these other countries? To me, that doesn't make sense, and it makes me hope that maybe it's a demographic thing, and Valheim just hasn't broken into these other demographics. Because if that's true, then there are literally millions of people who would love to play Valheim, but they don't even know it exists, which is promising. But I have a feeling that these people are not in the Scandinavian regions, maybe not even in the US, or maybe the US will start caring once Asmongold focuses on it or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, I'm done for now, everybody. My internet's cutting out. I gotta end the video. Thanks for watching, and thanks for participating in all the playtesting. And remember, if you want to try out Palm, free to join. You just gotta find the Discord information. Everything you need is there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching another episode of The Path of Magic. All of the crazy nonsense that you've been seeing so far has been done with Expand World Prefabs. Expand World Prefabs is a fantastic server-side BepInEx mod developed by Yer. And if it wasn't for Yer's hard work, none of this would be possible. So I strongly encourage you to support Yer if you can. And if you're interested in supporting my work, there's two ways that you can do so. By getting your own dedicated Valheim server at Zap Hosting. I've got lots to set everything up, and it doesn't even take that long. All you'll need to do is go to the link in my description, zaphosting.com/jpvalheim. That'll get you set up with the BepInEx server straight away, and then you just need to change a couple config files, and I have all of the information that you need for that. The second way is to support me on Patreon, and you can just check out the link in the description below if you're interested in doing that. I understand that some of you might want to support me, but, you know, you're not going to get a server to do so, so here you go. Now you have a way to do it. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to see you in the next episode of The Path of Magic. Bye-bye.